True power doesn't scream. It doesn't chase applause or demand the spotlight. Real strength moves in silence. It whispers where others yell. It commands without noise, and it controls without visible force. In a world addicted to drama, noise, and validation, the most dangerous person in any room is rarely the loudest. It's the one who says the least, feels the calmest, and thinks the farthest ahead. This is the essence of Machiavellian wisdom. Not brute force, but precision. Not chaos, but control. Violence makes a scene, but intelligence makes moves in the dark. While others lash out in panic or perform for attention, the true strategist observes. He doesn't need to assert his strength, because his silence says more than any threat ever could. He watches, listens, and calculates until every piece is where it needs to be. And then he strikes, not to be seen, but to end the game before it begins. The ones who shout often betray their fear. The ones who posture expose their weakness. But the one who remains emotionally still, whose presence alone shifts the temperature of a room, holds the real power, the kind of power you don't see until it's too late. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this deeply. He knew brute force could win a battle, but only psychological mastery could win a war. When you no longer need to prove yourself, everything changes. You stop reacting, you stop explaining, you stop engaging with nonsense. Because silence, sharp, calculated silence, makes your enemies echo their own insecurities. You don't declare war. You let your enemy destroy themselves trying to predict your next move. That's not fear. That's dominance. Not through aggression, but through restraint. Real power is built in the shadows, in discipline, in detachment, in the refusal to be ruled by emotions. The most threatening presence is not the one that yells, but the one who sits silently while others lose their composure. When you carry silence like a weapon, when your stillness rattles those around you, you've already won half the battle. Because the person they fear most isn't the one who roars. It's the one whose silence they can't interpret. Silence is not the absence of reaction. It's the presence of control. When you stop playing defense, stop explaining yourself, and stop engaging on your enemy's terms, you begin to shift the battlefield. In this game, the most important rule is this: control the optics, and you control the outcome. It doesn't matter who's technically right. It doesn't even matter who has more resources. What matters is who appears calm, who looks like they're in control, who walks into the storm without blinking. In conflict, perception isn't just part of the game, it is the game. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see you, but few understand you. Appear strong, and others hesitate. Appear unshaken, and even chaos bends around you. That hesitation is your advantage. The moment your opponent begins to second-guess themselves, you've already created leverage." The Machiavellian strategist doesn't interrupt. He lets the opponent speak first. He studies their tone, their rhythm, their words. Then he bends those words like blades, redirecting energy with precision. It's not just charisma. It's warfare disguised as conversation. In business, politics, and personal rivalries, those who manage appearances often win without lifting a finger. If you appear composed, others project power onto you. If you seem unbothered, others assume you've already won. And when your enemies start playing defense, based on assumptions, they're playing your game, not theirs. That's not manipulation for cruelty's sake. It's strategic positioning in a world where people act on emotion, not fact. You don't need to overpower everyone. You just need to appear untouchable. Let them yell, let them accuse, let them spiral. And while they burn fuel trying to provoke, you sit quietly, still, calculating, waiting, because your control over your emotions is more terrifying than any outburst they could throw. In a world where everyone is reactive, your restraint becomes sacred. Your silence becomes unnerving. Your presence becomes mythic. That's the Machiavellian way. The true battlefield is not the arena. It's the environment. Before any confrontation takes place, the Machiavellian thinker shifts the space itself. Because the most effective way to win isn't by overpowering the opponent, but by quietly reshaping the conditions in which the game is played. You don't force your enemy to change. You force their surroundings to shift until their decisions start aligning with your goals without them realizing it. They'll think it's chance. Bad timing, unlucky breaks, but it was all calculated. Imagine a chessboard. You don't have to capture your opponent immediately. Just close off the exits, slowly move the walls, adjust the tempo, introduce distractions, starve their resources, let their options shrink with every passing move. And when the time comes, they'll have no path left but the one you prepared. For them, this is environmental manipulation, and it's more powerful than any direct attack. Meetings are rescheduled. Budgets are redirected. Allies are pulled away. A sudden silence falls over what once was support, not a single loud move made, but the foundation beneath your opponent quietly begins to erode. You don't confront directly. You maneuver. While they're looking for a fight, you're redrawing the map. By the time they realize the game has changed, they're already losing. Their momentum falters. Their confidence slips. They begin to doubt not only you, but themselves. This isn't about destruction, it's about redirection. You let your opponent fall, not because you pushed them, but because you removed the ground beneath their feet. Machiavellian power lives in that subtlety. The power to make others believe their downfall was their own doing, while you remain untouched in the shadows. In war, in business, in relationships, this is the true art of control. Victory doesn't always look like a clash. Sometimes it looks like an empty room, a missed deadline, a withdrawn ally, a quiet retreat. You didn't fight. You designed the fall. This is how battles are won before swords are drawn. Sometimes the sharpest weapon is the illusion of weakness. In a world that rewards visible dominance, the greatest threat is the one that hides in plain sight, not roaring, but limping, not intimidating, but apologizing, not posturing, but pretending to submit. This is misdirection. This is the mask before the strike. Machiavelli knew that when you appear harmless, people grow careless. When you lower your defenses on purpose, your opponent begins to relax. They reveal more. They brag. They show their hand. And in doing so, they unknowingly open the door for your most devastating move. Feigning weakness is not surrender. Manipulation in its purest form. You're not giving up power. You're repositioning it. When you apologize without losing intent, when you withdraw without losing purpose, you reset the game. Let them believe they've won. Let them laugh. Let them grow arrogant. Because arrogance is the precursor to blindness, and blindness is fatal. The real strategist doesn't react in anger. He waits in silence. He allows ego, paranoia, and overconfidence to corrode the enemy from within. And when the strike comes, it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's precise, surgical, final. A clean execution leaves no mess, no retaliation, no second round, just quiet, irreversible collapse. This is why Machiavelli warned against half measures. If you must confront, finish it. A wounded enemy will obsess, and obsession breeds revenge. Allow them to retain their pride, and they will come back stronger, more vengeful, more dangerous. But if you erase their influence, remove their support, and strip them of dignity without a word, they have no path back. No footing, no echo chamber, just silence. That is not cruelty, that is closure. And in Machiavellian thinking, closure is survival. Real fear doesn't come from a raised voice. It comes from silence. The most terrifying force in a confrontation is not the one who threatens, but the one who says nothing at all. Machiavelli understood this well. When you stop speaking, when you stop explaining, when you hold up a mirror instead of launching an attack, your enemy begins to unravel. You don't have to scream to dominate. You don't have to react to control. You simply let them stew in uncertainty. People fear the unknown more than they fear violence. When you remain unreadable, their imagination becomes your greatest ally. Every quiet moment expands into paranoia. Every unanswered question becomes a weapon. Every rumor, unconfirmed and unexplained, takes on a life of its own. You don't clarify. You don't deny. You let silence amplify the shadows, and in that stillness, your enemy sees the thing they fear most, themselves. This is psychological warfare at its most refined. You don't need to terrify them. You let them terrify themselves. Let them wonder what you might do, not what you will do. Let them fear what they think you're capable of. That ambiguity is more powerful than any direct threat. It haunts, it paralyzes. Machiavelli didn't say be feared. He said be believed capable of anything. That's the genius of the psychological mirror. It doesn't show them who you are. It shows them who they fear you might be. And in doing so, you let their own imagination become the executioner. In a world obsessed with reaction, your unpredictability becomes your shield. Your stillness becomes your strength. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to become unreadable, because when they can't understand you, they can't predict you. And what can't be predicted can't be stopped. In the age of noise and urgency, patience is a form of dominance. Machiavelli knew that most people demand quick results. They want revenge now, recognition now, control now. But that desperation, that hunger to act fast, is weakness in disguise, because real power doesn't rush. It waits. Time is the blade that sharpens itself. The Machiavellian strategist stretches time like a bowstring, drawing it tighter with every moment of silence. While others burn energy reacting, he conserves. While they scream, he listens. While they move recklessly, he plans with surgical precision. You don't throw fire when provoked. You throw silence. You let them feel like they've won. You step back, not to retreat, but to tighten the noose they didn't even realize they'd stepped into. This is how time becomes your most ruthless ally. The enemy who believes you're finished because you've gone quiet will lower their guard. That's when they start showing weakness. That's when they begin making mistakes, because arrogance blinds them. And when you finally move, you don't just strike, you end it. Patience is not passivity. It is the highest form of self-control. It's what separates reaction from precision. It's what turns impulse into inevitability. Machiavelli didn't destroy his enemies through anger. He let them exhaust themselves. Then he moved, quietly, cleanly, without remorse. You don't win by being first. You win by being last. The one who survives every emotional storm, who sits in stillness while the world convulses. That person becomes untouchable. Let others fight to be loud. You fight to remain deliberate, because in the space between their chaos and your calm, victory takes shape. That's how power isn't just taken, it's inherited by those who outlast. A lone enemy is a weak enemy. Before any strike, before any move, Machiavelli understood the importance of isolation, because no matter how strong your opponent is, their real power doesn't come from themselves. It comes from their network. Their allies, their enablers, their echo chamber of support. And once you remove that structure, even the most confident person begins to tremble. You don't have to confront them directly. You just have to quietly pull the threads that hold them together. You plant seeds of doubt in conversations. You create tension where there once was loyalty. And soon, the people they trusted begin to step back, unsure, silent. Suddenly their circle feels colder, smaller, emptier. The shift isn't loud, but it's real. They start asking, why are my calls going unanswered? Why is no one defending me? Why am I alone? That's when you've already won half the battle, because once they feel isolated, their confidence collapses. Their decisions become erratic, and they begin unraveling themselves. In psychological warfare, isolation is a scalpel, not a hammer. You don't need to destroy your enemy. You just need to ensure no one's left to stand with them. Confrontation in a crowd creates chaos, but confrontation in silence, when no backup arrives, no supporters speak up, and no one intervenes, that's total control. Let them call it cold. Let them call it cruel. But Machiavellian power doesn't care for public approval. It aims for quiet final outcomes. You don't need to smear their name, just dissolve their influence. You don't need to crush the person. Just remove the platform that makes them dangerous. And when the dust settles, they don't look defeated. They look erased, forgotten, irrelevant, not because you attacked them, but because no one stood by them. That is how true dominance is executed, not with fury, but with absence. In life, you won't always win by being louder, faster, or more aggressive. The world rewards noise, but it bows to precision. Power isn't about domination, it's about positioning. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to prove yourself in every room. You don't need to win every argument. You just need to observe without reacting. And strike only when impact is guaranteed, whether you're dealing with betrayal, workplace politics, toxic relationships, or personal enemies. The rules stay the same. Patience is protection. Silence is strategy, and control is survival. Your emotions are a currency. Don't let others spend them. The Machiavellian thinker doesn't allow himself to be weaponized by chaos. He isolates problems. He shapes perception. He stays calm while others chase storms. Because he knows, when you move from a place of restraint, not rage, the outcome is yours to dictate. In a world addicted to immediacy, your stillness becomes your superpower. You don't have to announce your power. You don't have to explain your choices. You don't even have to win publicly. You win by positioning, by shaping the story before it's told, by mastering yourself first before attempting to master anyone else. That's not just strategy, that's survival in its most refined form. You move in silence. You think 5 steps ahead. You isolate chaos before it reaches your core. And you never give anyone more access to your peace than they've earned. Because the more composed, unpredictable, and unreadable you become, the more untouchable you are. And in the end, true power doesn't need to be declared. It only needs to be felt.